Brandon, come on up, buddy. It's all yours.
Well, I'm glad to be here, guys. I'll tell you later. I used to come to Roane County quite a bit for what I would now consider nefarious purposes, but I'll get to that in a moment. What I want to do tonight, if I can, is talk to you a little bit about my background. Folks always ask me to do that. I tend to get right into the issues, but I'm going to gloss over some of that. How we launched the Tennessee Conservative, which has now become our state's largest conservative news alternative, and in my opinion, the only one.
The best. Yes.
Thank you. Very kind. Talk a little bit about what I have discovered following the state legislature for the last, what will be in October, 4 years. I'm going to talk to you slightly about Ken Yeager's voting record since our publication has been in office, for those of you that may or may not know. Talk about what conservatives can do, some of the bright spots I see in our state, and there are some unfolding right now. And then finally, as Dennis mentioned, we got to get going. We got to take action if we can physically make a difference. So my background is, I grew up in Alabama, Arab, Alabama. I lived in a little, I'm sorry, getting out in front of the camera. I tend to walk when I talk. I grew up in Arab, Alabama, a little single wide trailer. We didn't have air conditioning. My mother worked and was very young, rarely at home. And I was raised primarily by my grandparents up until I was 13. I moved in with my dad. And so when I moved in with Dad, we had no air conditioning. We had one sink in the kitchen that belched out old red well water, no sink in the bathroom. Wood burn stove, and this is like 1992. I mean, this wasn't 1952. And we were just, as David Allen Coe would have sang, poor white trash. And I grew up, he couldn't read, couldn't write, he had clubfoot, facial deformities, and I was a poor kid in a very poor area. And he encouraged me to go to school and get an education because it had been such a hindrance to him to not have one. And so I went to Jackson State, got an undergraduate, picked up my MBA at UTC, and then I got involved in politics. Some of it I'm proud of, some of it I'm not. When you're young and you want to get involved in politics, you have these rose-colored glasses on. And you think, if they got an R beside their name, we won. The good guys won, right? There's white hats, black hats. And as I've been involved as I got older, I learned that wasn't the case. I used to just work on campaigns, and I worked on Senator Corker's campaign, which he was not very conservative. Scott Desjardins, who I am proud to have worked for, who has a pretty darn conservative voting record as a congressman. I worked for lots of state reps, local races, and I primarily raised money. And I wrote a book called How to Raise Money for Political Office. But after I put Congressman Desjardins' team together to beat Lincoln Davis and flip that seat from a D to an R, and then I ran his re-election campaign with CNN called The Nastiest in the Nation, and it was. I just got tired of politics, and so I went into painting. Because painting and politics, you're always trying to cover something up. And so it's basically the same job. And even though I can't paint, and I've never painted, I started a painting business, grew it up very large, and sold it. And then I got out of politics. Like this stuff, some of this stuff overlaps with me running Desjardins' campaign. But I completely left politics and started something called the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors. And I've been doing that for a decade now. And I help painting contractors with marketing, sales, operations, hiring, purchasing group, online services. Even people you see in vans that ride around painting stuff, those are the people that are my clients. And so I got completely out of politics. I'm one of those people that either I am in it, and I'm eating it, sleeping and breathing, making a difference, or I don't want to know about it, read about it, hear about it, because then it just makes me feel guilty for not doing anything about it. But then 2020 hit, and I'm sitting at my office, illegally, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, working to provide my family with my non-essential money.
Yeah.
While the Republicans in our state were allowing the big box retailers to stay open 24/7, it's the largest shift of money in Tennessee state history at the hands of Bill Lee and the complicit legislature. Pushed vaccines as if they worked to stop transmission, mask as if they work, social distancing, lock down schools, put kids at home. They were utterly wrong on every issue. And in 2020, I got a call. Somebody that went to my daughter's little Christian school said, there's going to be a protest on the Market Street Bridge. I've never been to a protest. I don't like the idea of going to a protest. There's these two ladies putting it together. I'd like for you to talk to them. I said, fine. And after about 10 minutes on the phone with them, they were very sweet ladies, I realized this was not going to work out very well. There's like a list of 13 things you got to do to get a political event off the ground, and they've done none of them. This was Thursday. The event was on Sunday. So I basically quit working, and I hammered the radio, got in touch with every grassroots group. We put together flyers. We put up a website. We put up a Facebook page. We got the word out, and we had, in April of 2020, about 200 patriots on the Market Street Bridge in Chattanooga, and we had about another 100 driving back and forth. And we had a very simple radical premise. I'm labeled as a radical in the Tennessean and the Chattanooga Times Free Press, the Knox News Sentinel, Commercial Appeal. I'm a radical. I'll tell you about some of my really radical views here in a moment. And they completely lambasted us. The media did. Completely lambasted us. We were hicks, we were hayseeds, we were killing grandma, we didn't have our masks on. The reporters didn't either, but they didn't report that little fact. Yet, 2 weeks later, Black Lives Matter does the same thing night after night in Chattanooga. Spray painting things, toppling statues, kicking out glass in storefronts of small businesses in Chattanooga. And what did the media do? Glowing coverage and a mural on MLK. That's what they got. It's corrupt. It is remarkably corrupt. The media, and we're going to talk about how they are very entwined with Republican leadership in this thing. And it's hard when you're, many of you are members of your local Republican Party, to talk about the truth. It's difficult. It's very difficult. And we've got a lot of this same corrupting influence in our SEC across the state and with Scott Golden at the top. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. But nonetheless, I kept wondering, well, what can I do? I did this protest, and that didn't seem to do squat. And I thought I would work on our county mayor, but then I determined that all the authority came from state government. So what am I supposed to do? I can't get the truth. Nobody will get the truth out there. And I went, our church had shut down and would not meet, which I think is completely non-biblical.
Yes.
I can't find anything in the scriptures that says if there's a little violence. There was leprosy back then. There was all kinds of things you could catch. There was no modern medicine. I can't think of it. When there were plagues. In the plagues, they went to church. And these cowardly pastors, it just amazes me. It says in the Bible, occasionally people will have discernment. Now, there are many, many areas, I would say, a lot of areas in my life I have discernment. Ask my wife. No discernment. But when it came to COVID, I was like, this is not true. I read a book called The Great Influenza that was recommended by an attorney friend of mine. And I knew that none of this historically was going to pan out the way they said it was going to. It was going to turn out just like it did then, and it did. But I went to church, thank God. What a wonderful church I found at Calvary. Pastor Frank was preaching on Nehemiah. And how people walk past the broken down walls for 80 years. He said, well, maybe there's a Nehemiah in this room. And maybe you'll stand up and do something. And they were the first church in Chattanooga to open even when they weren't supposed to. And they started having services, and he started speaking out, and they developed a huge civics and culture program. The churches just thrived because they preached the gospel and told the truth. Every church that preaches the gospel and tells the truth tends to thrive. Now, there are other things you got to do. And I left that church convicted. I told my wife, I said, I think we're going to have to start this blankety blank news publication. I was kind of mad about it, but I knew we needed to do it, and I didn't really want to do it, but did it anyway. And I said, honey, they're going to call us every name in the books. I've been around the block on this stuff. They're going to call us racist. They're going to call us everything. And the moment we become effective, the names are going to even be more. We're going to print. Right? If you're not over at the target, you don't take any flack. He said, honey, you do what you think you need to do. And she thought I was a little out over my skis in April, but she stood with me. And then later, she started seeing some of the things that I did as well. So that's the birth of the Tennessee Conservative, and I went to my pastor, Frank, which is something else that I think Christians have a difficult time with. And I said, this is going to be all exclusively unmitigated conflict. All conflict. It's just, kind and gentle Jesus, right? Don't say anything, don't rock the boat, don't talk about politics. Now, I can't find that in Scripture. The prophets, the apostles, the disciples, commentary after commentary over culture and politics. It's about the only thing they did. And how the modern day church has now neutered themselves, in many cases, for money.
Yeah.
That tax exempt status zips their lips. That's why we incorporated as a for-profit business, even though they're making money, it's a for-profit, no-profit, because I didn't want them to regulate our editorial content. And in the Tennessee Constitution, the United States Constitution, it provides for a provision that the legislature shall never pass any law mitigating the free printing of the press so that people can know what their legislature's doing. And that's the reason we opted for that. So we got started, and I went and saw Pastor Frank and said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is right. Here's a spreadsheet, because I'm a spreadsheet guy, so I think we can make some money, and enough to break even. And what do you think about it? And he goes, why don't you have your first meeting? You're at the church, and we got a restaurant. We'll cater the thing, and we'll get as many people here as we can. It's like, what? No, occasionally, somebody will do something profoundly nice, and you never forget it. Out of the blue. And most people don't do that. And so, that's it. So what have I discovered 4 years into this? Well, let me back up just a little. Our primary focus was on the state legislature, and me, Gary Humble of Tennessee Stands, who gets lambasted and ridiculed. Now, we don't always agree 100% on everything, but I'll take 90 or 85, fine. These conservatives that get all wound up and can't be friends because they disagree on a little issue or a candidate, well, good luck. You stay in this for about 4 years and you're going to disagree with everybody. Everybody's got every one of you in this room has a slightly different opinion. And who else was it? Andy Ogles came out, and then later to agree, Glenn Jacobs. And then in the legislature, the first people to stand up were Janice Bowling, Mark Pody, and a handful of others. And then finally, because of the grassroots uproar, our publication, a few other folks going up to the Capitol, we ended up having 2 extraordinary special sessions where they rolled back probably 80% of the COVID nonsense. Probably about 80. There's still some awful rules and books. The governor still has these unmitigated, unconstitutional, farce emergency powers that were supposed to be for tornadoes and earthquakes, but because Bill Lee loves federal money and corporate money, he let us suffer. Bill Lee put more businesses, small businesses, out of business than any other Tennessee in our entire history. It's about 25 to 30%, depending on which numbers you read. Just folded because of his policies and allowing the cowardice, no constitutional mores. Guy made 10 promises on his campaign trail, kept 9 of them. And the only one he kept was, I'm going to form this little committee for religious something, which I have never been able to figure out what it does. I can't see anything measurable that it's done. You think it would inform his policy, but it doesn't do that. And so that was over, and I was like, well, I guess I'm done. And I've cranked this thing up. And as I kept watching stuff, I was like, well, we're all worried about medical freedom, and now there's this issue and that issue and this issue. So here's the primary thing that I've seen. Let me tell you what I've seen. The number one issue that Republicans are worried about in the state of Tennessee, when you survey them, we survey them. I have other folks that run campaigns that survey folks. I know what the answers are before I survey, but I always survey just to make sure I'm not in my little world. Number one is legal immigration. It's a number one. It is a number one. The bills that have been brought to stop the mass transportation of illegal aliens have been killed by Republican leadership. The bills that have been brought to stop the taxpayer funding of education for illegal immigrants have been killed by Republican legislators, Bill Lee included. The bills that would stop welfare benefits killed by Republican leadership. It's not the Democrats in Tennessee, ladies and gentlemen. The legislature can meet. Not only do they have a quorum, they have got a plurality. They don't need a Democrat to show up to Nashville to do anything they want to. When things don't get done in Tennessee or if things get killed, it's all Republican leadership. Corporate welfare. The doling out of $2 billion of your tax dollars to Ford Motor Company for these electric vehicles that nobody wants, that they lost $2 billion trying to make last year, that they now say they're pulling out of, that money's still going to go to them. You better believe it. And as soon as they got the guarantee of the money, what did they do? They tried to reinforce the mask mandates at plants and stuff like that. Without any scientific or medical, it's just all political mass psychosis. It's tribalism at its best. Medical freedom issues, they're still out there. Governor Lee wouldn't protect federal employees from this stuff, wouldn't protect medical workers. They still have no rights underneath that stuff. At Titan Stadium, it's grown men who are millionaires and billionaires playing with a ball. We don't need to, when we've got roads that need to be fixed and an education system that's crumbling, we don't need to be subsidizing millionaires and billionaires so that people, I mean, how many of you are going to go to Titan Stadium? I mean, how many of you, seriously, have any of you been there? Are they even for a concert? 2 people? Anybody else? 3, 4?
5, 6 years ago.
Nope.
So, but if we'd all been there, maybe. But I would say probably 98% of Tennesseans will never step foot inside the thing. We got to quit picking winners and losers, which is what Republicans love. And we'll talk about why it happens. Growth of government. Bill Lee said he'd shrink the size of government. It has grown each and every year, 10, 20% a year. Transparency and fairness in government. They passed this thing that we call the Incumbent Protection Bill, where they went to grassroots groups like you. If you show the face of a politician, mention their name 60 days before an election, because they were getting so much heat from us and Tennessee Stands and a few other groups, to turn y'all into a highly regulated PAC, as if we don't have the constitutional right of assembly.
Right. Amen.
I mean, these are Republicans. You would think I was talking about Democrats. You would think it. Crime in urban areas that won't be tackled. And the list goes on. Education, only 53% makes it into the classroom. They spend $12,000 a year per child. Graduating functionally illiterate people. I drive by Howard High School and a few of these urban schools in our area where my office used to be before I sold it in the crime-ridden heart of Chattanooga on Cross Boulevard. 5, 6 years ago, I drive by, it was primarily like probably 90% African American and about 10% white kids, and now you drive by and there's neither. It is all illegal immigrants. It's almost exclusively in their schools. I mean, I'm sure you've got it here in your school system.
No.
You probably got a little of it.
Yeah.
And if it ain't here now, just hang on. Just hang on. I come from a little town called Albertville, Alabama. It's smaller than this place. And boy, it's like 50% of the schools now. And so if you think you're immune, you're not immune. It's a small community. And so what I'm saying is, well, why does all this happen? If you go to a Republican Reagan Day dinner, or if you read campaign literature that comes to your house, you will not see any of this, hear about any of this, know about any of this. The mainstream media will not report it at all. In fact, they will cover it up and even lie about it in Tennessee. And why? It's because all the money, like we did again, I spent a lot of money putting together this thing called a Follow the Money report. You can go look at it, it's a little outdated now. I think it's followthemoney.net or followthemoneyreport.net. I don't know, just type in Follow the Money, Tennessee Conservative, it'll probably come up. And what we discovered is 90+% of Republican leadership money, which I knew with my fundraising background. I wrote a book called How to Raise Money for Political Office. It is like the only book written on the subject that I know of. 90+% of Republican leadership money comes from outside their district and from special interests that are almost all corporately funded. And so when the media is corporately funded and your Republican Party is corporately funded and even the state Republican Party is corporately funded, if there's anything that flies in the face of what a corporation, a left-leaning corporation would want, you think it really happens. No. And that's the issue. We've got this huge conflict between conservative votes and corporate money, and the corporate money is more relentless, it is more abundant, it's more organized, it's more informed because they get something. They get something from you, or they get to penalize a competitor, which is worth millions and billions of dollars to them, where all you get to do is keep your freedoms a little, or you get them to erode a little slower.
On paper.
Say again?
On paper.
Yeah, on paper. So I mean, this is where we are. So I'm going to read a few things. So Ken Yeager voted for a few things I'm just going to tell you about here real quick. And these are just like the same. This is emblematic. Now, he's not the only one. He voted for the Tennessee Recovery and Safe Harbor Act, which basically provided all these corporations for protection for all the evil things they did during COVID. Okay? Because they took the marching orders. Him and 15 other senators endorsed a letter that urged Tennesseans to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Pushed it without worrying about the side effects or the ramifications. I don't care what people do, but I don't care if you thought the cure was castor oil and turpentine. Go drink it, eat it, do whatever you want to, but I don't need to drink it or eat it. You make your choices, I'll make mine. He voted to make illegal immigration worse in Tennessee by allowing them to have professional and commercial licenses. They've been hit so hard over that the last 2 or 3 years that they repealed it in secret at the end of the session just to get it put to bed. He abstained from voting on a bill making ivermectin over the counter, because you shouldn't have any kind of choice, God knows. He opposed a bill that sought to ban abortions within the state. He also opposed a crucial bill which acknowledged religious exemptions in the face of immunization requirements. My children haven't been vaccinated. They're just fine. We're just fine. Everybody's just fine. I don't need you to tell me I've got to put this junk in abundance in my children. Now, one day if there's something really bad comes through and there's something effective, by all means we'll get it inoculated, not vaccinated, if it works. But it should be everybody's choice. Co-sponsored a resolution to give power to Tennessee's treasurers and the comptroller to use dollars to purchase portions of a company or bank. We need the state to become a corporation as if it isn't already, through the influence. Chose not to second a bill in committee that established a process. Basically, he was anti-nullification. We shouldn't have a process in Tennessee if the federal government declares something that's completely against your constitutional rights. We just got to go along with it because it's federal dollars, right? He abstained from casting a vote on a bill that would have removed gay pride flags from Tennessee schools. Man was there, left, took a walk. Him and a bunch of others, and the only ones that, I think Lundberg and one other voted for it, and then McNally voted with the Democrats, and the rest of them left the room so our kids could be indoctrinated. This is the kind of character the man has. And here's the other thing. I helped raise money for him his first time around.
That's why you were here?
That's why I was here, Kim. I was 20-something years old, got introduced to him, came down here. Oh, I'm real conservative, Brandon. Hell, you are. You are not conservative. And he just continually is lying to people about his voting records. Voted to keep the Department of Tourism development records hidden from the public. It's your money. It's supposed to be public. Voted for a red flag gun law bill so that mental health professionals say you're cray-cray. I've had a lot of friends that are mental health professionals, and if you are, Godspeed to you. About 2/3 of them are crazy. Their home lives are all who, they're on a bunch of drugs. I mean, I know them, they went to school for it, they're friends of mine. But I don't need them to determine your constitutional rights. Those are especially without trial or any kind of due process. And then finally, I'm not going to get through the rest of it. That's the guy that Tina's running against. And so y'all got to get out, knock on doors, and you don't have much time. Go through your phone and find every single person you know that lives in her district. Just go through your phone, who lives in the district. Text them. So you need to vote for 10, here's the reason why. Run. Just copy and paste the same message, change the name, sit there for 2 hours, text these people. If you give her some money, give her some money. It's important to do. anything you can do, drive people. Everybody's got some lazy friend that knows everything about Trump, knows nothing about their state government. It's something we got to be very careful of. The point of diminishing returns for knowing about your federal government is about 5 minutes a day. If you're spending any more than that much time consuming conservative content, I know it's entertaining, it's like a soap opera, but it ain't getting anything done, right? It'd be like if somebody said I was a runner. I'm a runner. I'm a big runner enthusiast. I'm a running enthusiast. Yes, I am. I got the shoes. I got the books. I read the I go to the podcasts. I go to the conferences and the conventions. I got the t-shirts. You ever run? Oh, no. That's not really for me, but I'm a runner. No, you're not. Look, being conservative, in my opinion, is something you do. And there are two things I can look at and tell if you're conservative. Your calendar. I can go back 90 days and go, show me on your calendar where we did anything that'll make a difference. And then I'd say, show me your bank account. And if no money's going out to help these state and local candidates, these conservative causes and organizations, the corporations are filling that vacuum with our elected officials and making them dependent upon what I refer to as PAC welfare. And their interests are not your interests. And so conservative Christians, whether it's a little bit or a lot, some of you have a bunch of money in this room, I don't know who you are, some of you have a little, that even in the Bible, the widow gave what she had. And so you've got to give what you have. So here's some of the bright spots. Here are some of the bright spots I see. We have got more conservative people challenging the GOP incumbents than I've seen in the last 4 years. They're coming out of the woodwork. It's great. And I had a lot of them tell me, I wasn't going to run against so-and-so, but I got on your mail list, and I kept seeing how bad my representative's voting record was, and I thought he was probably legal. Because Brian Ritchie told me that, Bobby Harshbarger's told me that, Chris Spencer's told me that. I've heard that from many people. And so our publication is bringing people, it's weakening these incumbents enough to bring challengers out of the woodwork. These people are spending every dollar in the war chest, which is great because a lot of them have to run 2 or 4 years from now, and they're not going to be able to rebuild it after having 10 years with nobody running against them. And I mean, they are spending millions of dollars on state rep races. State rep races. That's how much corporate grift, greed, and influence there is. And that's good, right? You got to use those resources. Even if we're making them weaker, even if some of these guys don't win, there's a growing influence with conservative grassroots organizations like you that are forming, that are more informed and more fed up and engaged. Steady flow of conservative members in the House and Senate. We picked up a few the last time around. And then finally, and this is kind of a good one for me, you may not think it's that big of a deal, but Twitter being a free speech platform in the state of Tennessee, because that's where all the elected officials hang out, who are in leadership, has been very effective for us. Because they feel the pain. Because that's where our followers are. We continue to grow there. If you have a Twitter or an X account, please do follow us on there. And so that's what I've seen. So what can you do? Number one, if you're not on our newsletter list, you need to get on it. You can text news. So you go ahead and hold this up. If you text news to that phone number, maybe this will work. Perfect. If you text news to this phone number, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to ask you for your name and your email address. Take a picture. If you'll do it now. I don't care when you do it. And then we've got little sign-up sheets in the back. I'll hang out for a little while after I'm done, but I've got to get back, and then I've got a presentation to do for my paying business in the academy in the morning at 10 o'clock that I've not put together. I've done it a million times, but it still takes work. It's for a software company, so I've got to get it done. I didn't get it done before I came here. So I've got to run back to the house and work on that tonight a little bit. You can write for Tennessee Conservative News. The pay is really great. It's usually somewhere around this. But we have what we call conservative citizen journalists, and if there's something going on in your county, like David Seal is in the what's the Liberty group? His county is Jefferson.
Yes.
Jefferson. Every time something goes on in Jefferson County, David Seal sends us a freaking write-up, and we publish it. And it's helpful. And there we got people in Williamson County. We've got some counties, we've got some prolific people. And we get mentioned at the county commission meetings. We get mentioned at the school board meetings because of articles that they submit, that we run. We've got the audience, they've got the knowledge. And once we get to know and trust somebody who isn't crazy, So if you understand crazy, you're the last ones to know. I'm sorry, it's just true. Some people don't need to be writing for us. I'm like, oh, we can't print that. That's not true. This is all opinions. I can't read this. And so we get some of that too. You can donate. Recurring contributions are really helpful, even if they're small for us, because we can look in the future and go, okay, we got X coming in, so we can afford, like we're rebuilding our website right now, which should be live next week. We just now finally, for the first time in 4 years, other than the money, I'm still a few $100,000 in the hole on this deal, and probably I might make it up in 6 or 7 years. I might get to zero if I'm lucky, without being compensated for my time at all, just back to zero. But we're having enough money to actually coming in on a steady basis to do a very small subscriber acquisition campaign on X through a guy named Dalton Disputes, who you met, who spoke on direct mail, but actually does quite a bit more at the conservative candidates head. So that's all I've got, guys. I would just say that you may find something you're good at, and if you're not good at it, find something you're willing to do. Sometimes it's just something you're willing to do. Look, I have been the treasurer for churches and organizations. I don't know why, for years. Somebody count the money. I don't like doing it. It's a chore to me. But sometimes you do stuff you're really good at. And I think I do a few things as the Tennessee conservative that I enjoy and that I'm decent at. But then sometimes you got stuff you do for an organization or a candidate that you're not good at it, but you just care, right? You care. But I can get some pictures. I never take pictures wherever I go. I don't have any videographers. Very bare bones. Usually my daughter is the one working the table and she's at a sleepover, so I've lost my best employee. I have. She's gone. I said, call me if you want to go to Roane County for 2 hours and listen to your dad talk. So, maybe. So anyway, she doesn't give her some money, and that's usually she's motivated for money, which is good. You got to get them working early. So she works the tables and helps me get the checks together that come into the P.O. box and a few other things. So I'm teaching her. We're homeschooling next year, so it's going to be a good time. That's all I got, guys. Hang in there. Just mark some time doing something that matters. But just be careful, I would say, as conservatives. We can get really wrapped up in the national drama or even the state and local drama. And the point of diminishing returns and that stuff, again, is just so quick. Like, when does it quit being useful and start being almost depressive or obsessive or whatever? Just take that time and just shift it toward what can I do with my time that I can point to that. That changed because of me. And usually the closer you are, the bigger return on investment you get for the time and money you spend, whether it's state and local government. Not to say that you shouldn't support people. I'm going to write Trump a check. I did it last time. I'm going to do it again. I probably should have done it already. And usually the checks I write, my wife and I pray over them and I try to make them a little bit painful. If it didn't hurt a little bit, probably ain't even, you're probably not trying, right? I don't know. But you just got to trust that God's going to provide. He's done it your entire life. That's how you're here. You're clothed. You probably rode here in a car. You're going back to a house, unless one of you just wandered in from a hut outside. He's provided. There will be more coming down the road. But that's all I got, guys. I went on longer than I meant to. I'm happy to take any questions you have, and thank you so much for having me.
Have you got a podcast?
I do have a podcast.
Is it on Rumble?
We have videos on Rumble, but also it's everywhere. I mean, it's Spotify, iTunes. You just type in Tennessee Conservative wherever you get your social media or your podcast, and follow the podcast, and we'll show up. Every week I do a little thing called the Big 7, and that's where it's the 7 big news stories that are going on in Tennessee. And I just say, okay, these are the 7 biggest stories for the week. And here they are, and here's my commentary. And I run through them. I don't do a second take. There's no video editing. I do it in my backyard with a phone. But we reach a bunch of people. We reach millions of people in Tennessee every month. Like, I look at, some, I don't know, some of it's BS, right? Because it's like some goofy conservative meme. Does that make any difference? Probably not, other than entertain people. And sometimes the stuff that doesn't make a difference travels further than the stuff that probably should. But often we'll post something about state government, and on Twitter, 18,000 people will see it. On Facebook, they shut us off a long time ago, but still a few thousand people see it, and you combine all the rest, and then our e-newsletter list that goes out in the podcast. So we had a lot of people through a lot of mediums, and we've been very effective with a very tiny, meager budget and a super small confederacy of conservatives and a very few staffers that get paid squat. They just get paid squat. I just recently gave Jason Vaughn for the first time since he's worked with me, like it's like a 15% raise. I was nervous about giving it to him because we don't have much money. But I mean, inflation's 24%. I mean, he's still 9% in the hole. And so you got to take care of your people. We've got a bunch of riders that just do it as passion, and we pay them a little bit, the consistent ones, but it ain't much. But they do it because they love it, because they're conservatives, and I feel like, well, I can, you know, they work for us enough. Maybe they got $600 or $700 a month. They write a few articles, and they make a car payment or whatever else, and it seems to be enough to keep them motivated. I hope we don't lose any of them. But at any rate, that's all I got. Questions y'all have? I may not be able to answer them, but I'll try. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, have you focused at all on Chuck Fleischman and his record?
Very little, and I'll tell you why. There's so many places to go for federal records. Because we have such a little staff and I have such little time, I can't keep up with federal stuff. And nobody else keeps up with state stuff from a conservative perspective. So I'm almost, people are like, what about this federal thing? I don't know, you tell me. You start a publication for that and write those articles for me to read because I don't have time to keep up with it. So I wish I could, but I know that he is wishy-washy.
Yeah.
He is wishy-washy.
Index done by the John Birch Society rates him against the
Just get with him afterwards.
Yeah,
he probably knows more about
he
Chuck
is not
Fleischman
very,
than anybody
he's
else.
not very solid, but you know, I got to pick my battles, and unfortunately, state and the local that I think is really important for the rest of the state, or local that somebody else submits to us, we run, but we primarily focus on state government. Like that, everything else is kind of a bonus. We do syndicate some federal stuff from Center Square and a few other publications, but all of our originated content is all about state and local government.
I understand that.
The boring stuff.
No,
The boring
it's
stuff. It is to most people. Go to the gas station. Talk to 100 people. Who's your state rep? Who's your state senator?
Nobody knows.
10 of them know.
Yeah.
Name one thing that happened in the legislature in the last 18 months. Nobody knows anything.
No, I just asked 2 people today if they were registered to vote this week, and they're like, what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'll say this about that, and then I'll take your question. They complain about low voter turnout in Tennessee. I think it's fantastic. The lower, the better.
Yeah.
The lower, the better. We need to cut that by half. Because these morons that cannot figure out when election day is, they're so apathetic about their government, do not deserve to have any say in it.
Yeah.
But when these things start popping up like lilies in the spring, called campaign signs, everywhere you go, something should be clue you in. There's like 1 billion signs on the road and in my neighbor's yard. Maybe there's an election. Oh, and it says on the signs when the election is. And people are like, we need to get out the vote efforts. I'm like, no, these people are too stupid to turn out. That's my personal opinion. And the good thing about low voter turnout is it makes it easier for people like Tina and others running against incumbents to get elected because the same people vote over and over again, and it costs less money and less time to reach those hardcore voters, and that is an advantage that conservatives have. So don't you ever try to turn out any votes. Randomly. No random turning out of votes. No get out the vote programs. You only want get out the super duper conservative vote program. And you just run that amongst yourself, and you don't tell anybody else about it. So your questions.
I'll talk to afterwards. It's a 15-minute city question about Chattanooga, but that's a different
Oh,
story.
okay. Well, I'll tell you about that because we haven't written a little bit. It sucks. It's the overreaching influence of not even our federal government. It's like a global government.
Oh yeah, no, this is a UN initiative.
Into the money corrupts.
Chattanooga's.
It's where power is. And Chattanooga is. I moved out of there.
Yeah.
I lived 3 houses off Brainerd Road, which is probably the busiest 4-lane other than the interstate in all of Chattanooga. And I love my little community I lived in, a bunch of 1930s and 40s 40s and 50s houses. Everybody kept their yard up. It was a nice community. And then I just watched Democrat mayor after Democrat mayor run into the ground. Now, Bob wasn't super conservative as a mayor. The streets were clean. Crap was policed. I mean, people went to jail, including me 3 times. You're out drunk, getting in trouble. I was a wild man. You're getting in trouble for public. I was drunk in public, as Ron Lott would say. And so I got arrested. Now you can be on meth and hopped up and in somebody's yard, and they just let you lay there in Chattanooga. Like there's no. They got rid of the drunk tank. That was very reformative. 3rd time's the charm. It's very reformative. So why they don't bring back the drunk tank? I think that's what we need to. I need to do a campaign for that. It's a question, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Lou Beretta. I've been part of the Roane, probably the 2nd or 3rd meeting, and maybe we could pick your brain because we have the energy, and it seems like you have the method. What can we do as individuals here that we could help get our word out so that that word can transport to the mission that we have? Do you have any advice for us?
So there's a few things. What Dennis talked about originally, like just keeping up the legislature, talking to them, sending them individualized emails that aren't like sent. Yes, sir.
I might have misled you.
Okay.
I mean, individuals, like to let this group
To grow.
grow.
Recruitment.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
then
you were able to pull 200 people in 3 days to a march on a
Yeah,
bridge.
and there's a difference between, so there's enthusiasm to attend an event, and there's the enthusiasm and dedication required to do something after it.
Right.
That's a smaller audience. It's also the audience that wins elections. Like when you run like Tina's little campaign, guys, y'all get out and knock on the, recruit yourself to these candidates. Like recruit yourself to them. They're often won by like Michelle. She's been like very dynamic. She's running for state rep against Patsy Hazelwood in my area, been very involved in that race financially and otherwise. And she's grown 40, 50, 60 people to like routinely help her. Like it's just amazing compared. Usually it's a few dozen people that win, that are consistently helping, and then 30 or 40 that show up occasionally that win these local races. You got to have a recruitment program, which I've got to develop. I've got a little conservative club I run on Signal Mountain, which kind of isn't doing very good right now. Because I've just been so busy with these elections and everything. I'm going to get back on the stick and maybe trying to get some people to help. It's hard to get folks to help, but put flyers up about your monthly meetings. If you can afford it as a group, chip in and get advertising in a publication about your meetings, especially state your local newspapers, because nobody reads anything local except folks that care about it. It's a very small group, but it's the kind of group that would turn folks out. Post on social media. All of y'all have social media accounts. When he sends out an image of a speaker or something like that, share it on Nextdoor, share it in Facebook groups in your area that have to do with local issues. I'm sure there's about 4 or 5 Kingston things that don't have to do with yard sales, lost dogs. You can put it in there. And so it's really about getting as many lines out as you can. Conversations, you've got these cards that are out here. When you meet somebody, take it, put it in your wallet. Hey, listen, we got this meeting. And here's one other thing I'll say for y'all as far as recruitment goes. This is something I teach our painters about recruiting, or painting contractors about recruiting labor. You gather their contact information. You don't give them information. If you want to give them information as a bonus, that's fine. So, well, what's your number? Is it okay? Or can I get your email address so we can put you on our list, and then that way you'll get notified? And then get that email to Dennis. Hey, here's somebody, here's their name, email address, and phone number. He was very interested, said he'd like to come. So gather the information. Okay, it's just like if for you men that can remember hitting on pretty girls, if you've been married so long, that may be so far in the distant past you don't even remember. But if you saw a pretty girl in the grocery store, you wouldn't hope that you run into her again. Ask her for a phone number. Get the digits. So y'all got to get the digits or get the email address or whatever they'll give you. Send it to Dennis. Let him add it to the list. And there's the first rule of politics is build the list. So anything you can do to generate an opt-in, or make sure you've got a good opt-in. You might put together, for example, you can put a lead magnet on your website that says something like, Who are your elected officials, question mark? Please subscribe to our email newsletter and we'll send you a PDF of all your elected state, county, and officials in the Kingston area. It's something, right? It's something of value if somebody goes there, they might give you their contact information. So those are a few ideas, some of which I need to put in practice myself. Questions? Don't move, I'll call you. Just hold a little still. Any other questions? I covered a lot. That's good. Y'all are tired. I've worn you down. That's what I like to do. But thank you so much, guys. I'll stand over here by the table for a little while. For those of you that want to subscribe the oldie way, we'll talk in sir.
Actually, I do.
Are you looking for our information?
Yes, I need your information. I need your numbers. I'm married, but I need your numbers for newsletter purposes.
I know there's some big money of people that are true conservatives in Nashville. They're part of the old party that are trying to break away because funding insurgencies and stuff like that. I've heard that phrase a couple of times before. Is there anybody in Nashville that's actually supporting you? A fan? Do you have allies there?
I have got a few. I can't mention some people are kind of. The good thing about us is we're a for-profit news publication, and I don't have to report who gives us. And our subscription model is just like if you think it's worth something, give us something. And so the people that believe in the mission a bunch and also have money, give them a bunch. And the people that don't believe it, which is only about, I think now we're up to about 8% of our list gives. And the other 92 are freeloaders. I don't care. We're giving you some information that's at least helpful. But to me, you need to get on board, right? I mean, even if it's just $10 a year, whatever, something to defray expenses. But I've got a few folks that the other day I checked the mailbox and there's a $5,000 check in there to rebuild the website. And then later there's a $3,500 check to help rebuild the website. And I was like, of course I call people, I write letters, I'm effusive in my praise, it humbles and even, I don't know, I'm weird, it almost embarrasses me for people to give big. I don't know why, because I'm not very good at accepting compliments, and that's to me, it's a tremendous compliment of our mission. And so we got a bunch of people that I get $17 a month in a check that I know has come to us 100 times since we started the news publication. Not 100, it's like 40 times. And it's from, little old ladies on fixed incomes that don't want their state to turn into a crap hole. And I know because that's why they write me. I don't want my state to turn into a on a Christmas card, it's like, hey, somebody explain spoken.
That's the note on the check.
I'd love to meet this lady one day. But at any rate, we got them all shapes and sizes. But I do believe it'd be so much nicer. I'll close with this. So many conservatives are worried that if they state their views or stand up for their, what I would say, values, they're worried that they may lose $1 or lose somebody else's approval. And to me, if you want to stand by your convictions because you're afraid you're going to lose some money or somebody's approval, your convictions are other people's approval and money. Because you live these things out. I was luckily born with this psychological defect where criticism doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I mean, I was about, it's because I love my mother. We have a very strained relationship. She never said good job, thank you, is all like if something fell out of the freezer, she'd cuss a wild streak. It was just very awful upbringing. And so finally, at some point, I think in my life, I said, you know what? I don't need praise. I'm just going to go do what I want to do. And I'm not going to worry about any of that. So that's what really gave me the strength and the courage early on to do the Tennessee Conservative in the middle of COVID, which was very difficult. And even conservatives and even Republicans just came after me for wanting what we now realize should have happened from day one. And none of them say I'm wrong. None of them have said, not one of them, I apologize. Not one. Not one. I've not heard that from anybody. I was wrong, I apologize. And so you got to have thick skin if you're gonna stand up, because it's difficult and you're gonna lose something. If it doesn't cost you, telling the truth costs you something. It usually doesn't get you something. And there's a good way to do it, but I have learned at our publication I have to be combative. If I do not hit a politician right between the eyes as hard as I can, they don't even notice. They don't even notice. And I thought I'd be able to kind of work behind the scenes and kind of write this kind of generic reporting that kind of, gave both, no, this ain't doing nothing. Hit them between the eyes over and over and over again, and I've watched a lot of them change their voting patterns, change their tune, change the way they talk to constituents, drop out. And I've watched conservative candidates challenge them because our publication has made them weak by telling about the record. So there's a price to telling the truth, but there's also a remarkable benefit to telling it. And if you look in the scriptures, and every time truth is spoken to power, true truth spoken to true power, not this fake stuff the media says they do. There's a cost to the individual who does it. Like the gentleman that you told me that spoke at your church, who's going to prison for protesting at an abortion clinic. When they ran wild all over our nation, burning and looting and everything else, and hardly anything happened to them. And you've seen this. I mean, we now live in the United States where conservatives are truly, and Christians are truly persecuted. And I think as Christians, we've had it so good for so long, we never thought it would come around, and here it is, right at our front doorstep, and we really let it happen to ourselves in many ways. So, guys, thank you for letting me ramble on. I appreciate y'all so much.